Two, two. Two, 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 check.
You've just become an elite member of the Friendship Triangle.
Oh my goodness. What a start to the stream. What a start to the stream. Kijiji, thank you so much for 5 gifted subs. I really, really appreciate that. Very, very cool. We're coming in hot here. Thank you so much, Kijiji. And yeah, that was my last piece. That pizza really lasted me a long time. I made that pizza on... When was it? Was it Sunday night? I think so. Sunday night, and I just polished it off now. Very yummy. And people are saying I'm eating pizza for breakfast. Like, listen, I don't think there's anything particularly wrong with eating pizza for breakfast. Like, it's just dough, cheese, toppings, sauce. You know, if you have that on if you have those ingredients on an English muffin, toasted slightly differently, it's just a breakfast sandwich. You know? There's nothing wrong with it. However, it is 11:30 a.m. here. I'm on Eastern Standard Time. It's the real correct time zone. And that's an early lunch. That's not breakfast. Hollandaise for the morning, tomato sauce for the afternoon. A hollandaise pizza would be something else. That'd be pretty wild. Yeah, crack an egg on there. Crack an egg on there. You have a little hollandaise breakfast pizza. That's pretty good. Anyways, it's not breakfast. I had a donut for breakfast, and now it's almost lunchtime. It's a little early lunch. We got a little early lunch situation going on. Anyway, that pizza was really good. I don't know what... It's strange because I don't know what I did differently. The crust came out so much better the second time I did it, and I cooked it for the same amount of time. I don't know why the crust didn't come out as well the first time, but this one turned out really well. For just making it in my oven at 450 on like a piece of parchment paper, it was pretty good. Maybe I left it for another minute or so. That might have been it. I'm not sure. Anyway, it was really good, this one. Really good, and I like the interesting ingredients as well. Interesting ingredients that I threw on there. That's fun about it. That's a kind of fun adventure about making your own pizza. You can kind of just do whatever. It's your pizza. You can put whatever you want on there. Chin chin. My partner microwaves it. You mean she like puts pizza dough and pizza toppings in the microwave? I can't endorse that, Kev.
You can count on me.
I can't endorse
good
that.
Old Rob to talk you through all
the
this.
Leftover slices. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I would take cold over microwaved. It's just in the microwave. It's always like kind of soggy. You put it in the air fryer and it kind of rejuvenates it back to how it was when you first got it. I don't want a soggy, slimy microwave piece. No, thank you. Pelicans, thank you very much for the gifted sub. Very cool. Look, we're coming in hot today. We are coming in hot. Hence the shame. Well, I'm sure your girlfriend is very nice, but unfortunately the shame is well deserved there. There's just no getting around that. Everybody, we're all refreshed from the beach vacation. We got sand in our phones and sand all over in other places as well. That was fun. That was a fun little adventure yesterday. We got to get back down to business, though, today. I disagree with the text below, Rob. He didn't mention one time that yesterday was a psyop to promote his new steel drum band. You know, I did make a song that has steel drum in it. Like, I wasn't doing a psyop to get people to listen to a steel drum band. I did make a song that has steel drum in it. I'm going to put it on right now. I'm going to open my door as well. This is really like an action movie score kind of thing. Eric, here's the drop. Tropical Heat, exactly. It's like my action movie score. This one sounds really good with speeches behind it.
But don't scare Negroes today with no badge or no white skin or no white sheet or no white anything else.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
And then turn around and accuse you of attacking them. Every case of police brutality against a Negro follows the same pattern. They attack you, bust you all upside your mouth, and then take you to court and charge you with assault. What kind of democracy is that? What kind of freedom is that? What kind of social or political system is it when a black man has no voice in court, has nothing on his side other than what the white man chooses to give him? My brothers and sisters, we have to put a stop to this. And it will never be stopped until we stop it ourselves. They attack the victim, and then the criminal who attacked the victim accuses the victim of attacking him. This is American justice. This is American democracy. And those of you who are familiar with it know that in America, democracy is hypocrisy. Now, if I'm wrong, put me in jail. But if you can't prove that if democracy is not hypocrisy, then don't put your hands on me.
See, I always I like that. It works. You can stick pretty much anything behind there. We all do need a hype man like that. And speaking of which, Crackety Kraken, thank you for the gifted sub as well. Thanks, Crackety Kraken. Very cool. I appreciate it. Oh. Okay. Yeah, so we can't have we're all Rob's little hype people except when we make fun of him. I guess that's kind of part and parcel. We can't really have a fun, relaxing day, even though there was a little bit of discourse yesterday. We can't really have a fun, relaxing day by the beach today. There's too much stuff to get into. There's too much serious business to get into. So, you know, we were on island time. We were in beach mode. We were on vacation mindset. And now we got to get back to business today. Playtime's over. We got to get back to business. A lot of stuff to talk about. In a few minutes. I'm not going to jump right into it either. We don't need to be on island time, but we also don't need to immediately go, all out here. Playtime is nearly over. Okay, we have some mild chit chat. We're just not going to go push it all the way into island time. That's all. Okay. The chill grind set, exactly. I would encourage people to please check out the new episode of the Insurgents podcast that just came out. And give it a like. I feel like I don't do this enough, but if you can go and just click on those Insurgents episode and just give it a good old like on Substack. Obviously I would like you to listen to these episodes, but you can also just give it a little like on the Substack, which helps out a lot as well. It's another good episode. I did put out my NBA Finals prediction, as I believe it was Kijiji mentioned very early. Mavs in 6. That is my official locked in prediction. Mavs in 6. Thank you, Pelicans. I appreciate it. Off Grid J. Good day. Hello.
You can count on me. You're gonna have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Yo.
Is that the J that I'm thinking of there? Going off the grid? I don't know. Or is that just a coincidence? Or is there such thing as a coincidence? Sam, thank you for 28 months. Tier 1, I appreciate it. I use Pocket Casts if you want to talk about my preferred podcast app. I'm a Pocket Cast man. Could also be an off-grid DJ. That's true. We don't know. Hope all's been well. Well, it's been alright. I can't complain. I just picked a new one out and I can't remember the name. Like a new podcast app? I almost always listen to podcasts on my computer instead of my phone. That's interesting. You don't hear about that very often. Usually when I'm listening to a podcast, I'm walking around or driving around or doing dishes or something like that. I listen to the Insurgents on Spotify while I take a shower. Cool. Kind of intimate. It's getting all hilarious in the UK. Why did the boomers vote Brexit? I can't even leave to a better country. Well, you're almost saved. You got Keir Starmer now on the verge of a historic landslide. And the UK is going to be saved. You got Keir Starmer's progressive Labour government coming in with a massive landslide, and I'm sure they're going to be using that power for all kinds of transformative progressive policies that are going to rescue British society forever and banish the Tory threat to the shadow realm. I'm probably going to have to cover that election or do an episode where I talk to someone about it. Yeah, I know. I was being facetious about all the progressive hero champion stuff. That was not a serious statement. Imagine if I pivoted to being a big Keir Starmer head. We're with Keir. That's what we say. That's the official phrase of this Twitch community. We're with Keir. It's the new Labour, exactly. Starmentum, that's good. I like that. It would be really funny, though, if Keir Starmer was really just pretending to be like a right-wing dipshit and was like, enacted this massive majority and then abolished the whole like parliament system and became like British Stalin. That would be funny. Boy, would there be egg on my face if he was just pulling a big long con this whole time, purging the left and adopting all these like Tory positions. He's a secret Corbynite this whole time. It's all an elaborate ruse. Him and Corbyn had a agreement. They had an agreement, and he goes and he kicks Corbyn out of the party, purges the left, throws away all their big progressive economic kind of populist policies that Corbyn championed. They're walking into this huge majority now. He's got them right where he wants them. That would be very funny. If he wins and during the speech Corbyn comes out wearing a mask, pulls the mask off, oh, like a wrestling thing. Everyone's going crazy. Now you see Starmer is like Snape and Corbyn is like Dumbledore. He had to expel him, exactly. It's just keeping up appearances. By God, that's Jeremy Corbyn's music. Oh, Jeremy Corbyn. I would really like to get Corbyn on this show, actually. I've been saying that for years and I've just never tried. And I feel like it would be an actual possibility to get him on if I just reached out. Maybe I'll try to do it in the run-up to the UK election. That would be fun. Western politics is so dismal, we're doomed. That's it. We just have to come up with these like fantasy scenarios. Imagine this. Imagine that if he wasn't just like a right-wing dipshit and they were actually doing something cool. Yeah, wow, that would be fun. That's the only thing we have to hold on to. These like imaginary scenarios that we're inventing that will not happen. It's the same thing with AOC. Like sometimes we criticize her for trying to stake out this kind of like what I view as kind of like an incoherent midway position between supporting the Biden administration and still maintaining these kind of like progressive credentials. It would be really funny if she was eventually elected and then she became American Stalin, climate Stalin. The Green New Deal was the offer, okay? You rejected it. And now we're going to see what happens. That was your chance to still maintain some semblance of control over this system. That's gone now. Starts throwing people in camps and stuff. Yeah, Nashua did have him on the show. Maybe it would be possible. We'll see. I don't know. Anyway, it would be good to do an episode at least like on this coming UK election and bring someone on to talk to us about it. Keir Starmer wins this huge majority in the UK and immediately okays a massive weapons shipment to Hamas. Puts on the Hamas headband and everything. Keir Starmer. Hamas Keir Starmer. I don't know why. It's just like a funny bit to me to imagine different political figures being pro-Hamas. It's just funny, whether it's Trump, whether it's Biden, whether it's Keir Starmer. The RAF to enforce no-fly zone over Gaza. I mean, I would be the first to apologize to Keir Starmer. I was not familiar with your game. Trump 24, Alua Akbar. We need to talk about October 7th. A lot of lies, a lot of disinformation told about October 7th. Israel was using the Hannibal Directive. They fired on their own citizens with Hellfire missiles and tank shells at various kibbutzes. We need to look into this. We're looking into this very strongly. Zionists, very nasty people. It's going to be a one-state solution from the river to the sea. It's going to be one of the best deals we've ever seen. Now I'm sad about Jezza. Well, he's still going to probably win his election. His actual constituents love him. You know, he's just running as an independent MP. And now he can do that, and he doesn't have to be associated with this, like, gross fucking Labour Party bullshit. Who abandoned him, who betrayed him and abandoned him. He should have nothing to do with that party. Many people are saying it's one of the best deals. How's that Trump impression? Is it okay? It sounds stoned today? Well, I guess that's kind of my personal spin on it. I feel like it's getting there. It's getting to where it needs to be. It's getting to where it needs to be, I think. I'm making progress. 8 years into Trump being like a major political figure, I'm finally making progress on this thing. The funniest canvas I did in the UK was in Islington North, his constituency. People would literally offer you drinks and food if you canvassed for him. That's why it's cool that you did canvassing in the UK, Pelicans. That's why it's so funny seeing these dipshits like Paul Mason being like, I'm going to run in his constituency. And he didn't even like get that far. The idea that Paul Mason could come in and that people in Corbyn's constituency are going to vote for him or whatever like Labour Party person they're trying to parachute in there. It's just laughable. The hand gestures really do add a lot to it, for sure. I was not focusing on that. I was just doing the voice. I've been hitting my Benjamin very regularly. I enjoy the hybrids. Sometimes we like the sativa. Sometimes the indica. I like the hybrids. It's one of the best deals we've ever seen, getting these hybrids. The very best hybrids. He only does Diet Coke. That's right. It's his only... It's his only thing. It's his only vice. And just being a huge dipshit. Big, beautiful hybrids. The sucking air between sentences does help a lot for sure. Yeah. They're calling it the Benjamin. I was reading Pelosi made another $4 million on the markets with Nvidia stock. I know. I mean, I mentioned this on the podcast last night. Once again, it's the Insurgents podcast. Please give that a listen. But we talked a little bit about that last night. You know, and I was saying, what a true American hero. A true American hero, Nancy Pelosi. She could have been the greatest investment banker ever seen. She chose instead to devote her life to public service. That's the kind of selflessness that you love to see in an elected official. She's got a nose for a good deal, exactly. There's a great website that tracks the investments of Congress members. Super interesting and also lucrative to check out. It seems like it's a no-brainer. Like, we should just be all like putting our money into like not just like the basic, generic stock market brokers. We should be following what U.S. congressmen and senators are doing, is doing that. When I was in a financial planner, they told us up 20% in a mediocre year is absolute fraud. Well, it doesn't count when you're an elected official, I guess. You just get special little benefits. I wonder when the tech bubble will burst. I don't know. It's been years of this, And it feels like there's a number of bubbles, doesn't there? It feels like there's like 4 or 5 or 6 different bubbles that were just kind of waiting to burst. I saw that video of Pelosi in 1989 about Tiananmen. She's been messing things up forever like Biden. That's right. And now all these fucking ghouls are out there talking about Tiananmen. When there's Democratic mayors and Congress people and the president like sending in jackbooted thugs to beat the shit out of peaceful student protesters. The economy is built on bubbles. There's nothing actually holding it up. I mean, it feels like that's not sustainable, but, I've thought for years now that it was just on the verge of collapse. And this zombie economy just keeps shambling along. You would think they wouldn't bring it up. Exactly. They have no shame or sense of embarrassment, Cinnamon Challenge. No shame whatsoever. The thing about the tech bubble is that military spending is a pretty significant, this MF said, dignificant source of demand for it. So for as long as tensions are high, semiconductors and other high-tech production will have a pretty steady source of demand. Yeah, I mean, as long as the money keeps flowing to the military-industrial complex, things just keep moving along. Housing is going to be a disaster. They're doing weird shit with mortgages again. Yeah, and like, there's that bubble in conjunction with the higher interest rates. I don't know, but I feel like I've been waiting years for the other shoe to drop, and it just doesn't drop. So I remember at the beginning when COVID started and the line started to go down, I was like, here we go, here it comes. And they just like printed a couple $1 trillion and just threw it into the economy. Which they can do. Apparently they can do that. The housing bubble is structurally necessary to keep Canada's economy afloat. I think that's a good point, Sam. Like our entire economy is predicated on this bubble just going on forever. Which is, that's an interesting way of doing things, I guess. Driving me crazy with these just build more houses takes, as if that makes any sense for housing of all things. I mean, I think it would make sense if the state was building affordable housing, but I think the problem is when we talk about just build more houses, what that means in terms of policy is just offering tax breaks to developers and being like, pretty please, could we please have affordable housing? And they're like, maybe. Best we can do is some McMansions. Or luxury condos. There was an article on CBC about the Bank of Canada needing to build back trust with the public on inflation, not a line about corporate profits. Yeah. Because the inflation is not caused by corporate greed. It's caused by inflationary spending. This is another thing we talked about on the podcast yesterday, which focuses a lot on economics. It's because of this inflationary spending. When we help people pay for groceries, when we help people pay rent, when we help people survive on unemployment for longer, when we pay out these kind of benefits, it's inflationary, you see? It just causes inflation. It's just this scientific process. It's just this scientific process. You give money for people to buy groceries and pay rent, and it just causes inflation. Inflation just happens.
This is some guy, Rob Russo,
Oh.
some leftist based in Canada. I was turned on to this sick individual, and I found this.
Oh! Lucid, hello. Thank you for the raid. I appreciate it a lot. Welcome, Lucid Raiders. It's me, Rob. It's nice to see you. It's nice to have you. Please bring it on in here. I'm back from the beach. We had a little vacation day yesterday. I'm back from the beach. Thank you for joining. It's not a psyop. No, as it says at the bottom of the screen, I would tell you. And by the way, I noticed, chat, that was misspelled this whole time. It said I would tell you with one L, and no one corrected it this whole time, so thank you. Trust us, bro. Inflation just happens. It's like science. It's like science. There's not like human beings anywhere involved in that process being like, if we raise prices, we'll make more money. No. It's just this thing that just happens magically. I swear I'm a nice person, but you sound like you could do a killer Trump impression. Well, just Joshi. Flattery will get you everywhere. I was just doing a Trump impression just like 5 minutes ago. And everyone in the chat recognizes and realizes that it was excellent. It was one of the best impressions we've ever seen. People are saying, Rob Rousseau. He's got the #1 Trump impression. No. See, once the pressure's on, then it gets worse. Once the pressure's on, then I can't do it as well. It has to be natural. It has to come up naturally. Everyone was applauding before, like 5 minutes ago when I was doing this. Everyone was applauding. Everyone stood up and cheered. So by the way, if you just joined from the raid and you're not following the channel, please hit the follow button. Please hit the follow button. Totally free of charge for you to smash the follow button. More and more people are following the channel. I was hooting and hollering in my living room. That's fantastic, Sam. You can also hit the subscribe button for free with Prime. That's right. That's a good point, Kijiji. That's a great point. Hello, Casquette. Yes. Where are you in Canada? I'm in Montreal. I'm located in beautiful Montreal, Quebec, Canada. Which doesn't really count as being in Canada. Like, to be clear. Like, technically it's Canada, but like, not really, though. Not really. Montreal is just kind of its own little city-state. I get to see Montreal this summer. Can't wait to experience it. Fantastic city. Twitchy bite. World class. It's a world class city. I'm really tired. My son was awake so early today. I think he was awake at like 5. It was like a truly like ungodly time that I got woken up. I did go back to sleep for a little bit, but like it was still dark outside. It was still dark outside when he woke up. It was unacceptable, honestly. sounding kind of like a separatist, Rob. The thing is, I don't really want Quebec to separate. Or I mean, if Quebec separated as part of like a socialist, People's Republic. If we did the Socialist People's Republic of Quebec, then I would think that would be pretty cool. But really, I just think Montreal is kind of a city-state. You know, it's kind of just its own little place. That happens, I'll apply for refugee status. We would just get overthrown by the US anyway, but it's nice to think about. It's nice to think about, but we would just immediately get overthrown by the US. Once it separates, we could take it over the double revolution method. Wow. You're thinking 4 or 5 moves in advance here. Wait until the U.S. Civil War breaks out and they're distracted. That's probably a good way of looking at it, honestly. That's a good way of doing it. I like the sound of that. How was the Lucid Fox stream today? Did Carl the dog make any appearances on the Lucid Fox stream? I love Carl the dog. He's a friend of mine. Which does the US invade first, Mexico or Canada? I would definitely say Mexico, because Canada is still like a loyal vassal state. And anyway, like when the day comes that America does, like it wouldn't be an invasion of Canada. It would literally just being like they would just say to us, this is what's happening now. All this fresh water is ours now. And we would be like, okay, sure, yep, no problem. No problem at all. Is there anything else we can do for you? You can keep your pathetic excuse for a culture. We're just going to come over here and grab the fresh water. Oh, sure thing, eh? Yeah, just wait till they need to water the golf courses in Arizona. Exactly. I wonder how annexation would go over in Quebec. Probably not very well. That would probably be the one place where they would be vocally against it. Everyone else would kind of just be like, I guess so. Alberta would be thrilled. If the U.S. invades Canada, King Charles had better come to save us with his deformed sausage fingers. Or Prince Andrew. He's already shown his war heroism in the Falklands when he was tragically lost the ability to sweat because of his bravery in the Falklands. We need to get this guy over here in the trenches. If US annexes Canada, I'm probably going to kill myself because that means we're living in the Fallout timeline. Obviously the Fallout timeline is different, but in many ways, from what I understand of it, we are kind of living in the Fallout timeline in the broad strokes that while American society is on the brink of collapse, basically just engages in this kind of murder-suicide to prevent communism from spreading. Which sounds about right. There might be some big differences in the timeline and the lore and everything, but that part sounds pretty accurate.
some guy, Rob Russo, some leftist based in Canada. I was turned on to this sick individual, and I found this.
Benny, hello. Thank you for the raid, Benny. I hope the Benny stream was fantastic today. Welcome, Raiders. Bring it on in here. It's me, Rob. It's nice to see you. Please smash the follow button. If you can. It's like how we're in the Star Trek timeline, but we need to go through World War III before global communism wins. That's right. We got to go through some shit first. We're going to have to go through some shit first before we get there. My hair is really something else today. Look at this. Humid today. Look at this shit. Look what I'm dealing with here. If America annexes us, I'm dying in a guerrilla ambush. Mark my words. I'm too old to fight. That's the thing. I can't contribute anything. I'll go on here and complain about it, though. You believe that? In many ways, that's even more brave. In many ways, it's even more brave to come on here and complain about something than to sacrifice yourself for like a stronger ideal, you know? Sacrifice yourself for something bigger than you. Well, Odin, I'm not sure America's eventual annexation would do very much for indigenous rights. And in fact, maybe we could have an indigenous-led resistance movement, which I would happily participate in and support. No problem. Well, it's not as hot as it was yesterday, but it's very humid. It's very humid. I think I gotta turn my fan up a little bit. One sec. Okay, Lodane, sorry, I changed my statement. You're absolutely right. It would actually be good for America to annex Canada. Because Canada is also a settler colony. It would be totally fine for that to happen, and it would actually be a good thing. And why even talk about it? Why complain about it? Why complain about that eventually happening? Canada's a settler colony, so we should just let America take it over. I agree. I think that would be fantastic for everybody. We'd become a double settler colony, and it would actually cancel each other out, so. It would cancel each other out. As an American, I'd like to say to Canadians, Rob, I'm your boss now, and I accept it. I accept it. Yeah, it would be like double slurping your apes. That's exactly it. So America incorporates its resource outpost. Yeah, it mostly would just be formalizing that arrangement, you know? It would mostly just be like, let's just like cut the bullshit here and let's make sure that this relationship is as clear as possible to everybody. I don't think I know enough about the Fallout timeline to comment further on this. Cows moo. One day I will play one of these games. So I would like to talk about the ongoing updates that we've seen just taking place over the last couple of nights in Gaza, and talk about this whole completely bizarre, backwards, upside down situation with this peace deal. The Israel peace deal that Hamas is being belligerent and must accept. This peace deal, which if you talk to anyone like in the actual Israeli leadership about it, will tell you that it's completely predicated on the Palestinian resistance voluntarily surrendering and disarming and demilitarizing. So that seems like a pretty great peace deal for Israel. And I'm sure once Hamas voluntarily surrenders, Israel will start to be nice after. Israel will then be nice to Palestinians once this happens. I mean, it's the same thing. We're talking about this peace deal to end the Vietnam War. The Vietnam War has been so horrifying for years. You know, it's been so horrifying. Where we agree to finally propose this very generous peace deal where the Viet Cong voluntarily disarms, surrenders, and demilitarizes. You're welcome. You're welcome, everybody. We've solved the Vietnam War. This is the Biden administration back in 1971 or whatever. Yeah, just don't look at what's happening in the West Bank. Exactly. If you do, then you might be a little bit more concerned about what this might look like. This eventual peaceful situation where all Palestinian armed struggle has been voluntarily ended. Palestine is in bad shape because Hamas used all the pipes for rockets. Gaza has no pipes. Exactly. Let's talk about what's important here. I saved a bunch of stories here to look at, and like they're just they're all fucking horrifying. Look at these images of Khan Yunis. You know, one thing that's interesting as well is that there's no more pretense being given at all about like tunnels or Hamas or any of this stuff. Sorry, I got to turn this back on. There we go. There's even no pretense whatsoever about like tunnels, bombing tunnels, or Hamas, or whatever it is. Like, look at this. And like we've been talking about, like Israel has failed in whatever, like, this is Khan Yunis right now, which is one of the places that Palestinians were instructed to go when this started, to go south, right? Like, look at this shit. It looks like we're talking about a nuke, like it looks like a nuclear bomb went off. Yeah, they killed 3 Hamas fighters, so it was worth it. Well, all the kids that are being killed are also, they count as being Hamas as well. Like Nora said on Tanky Therapy, there are so many atrocities happening that it's hard to keep track. Just one of these would normally have weeks or months of coverage. Exactly. It's been 8 months of this. It's been 8 straight months of this. Like, it's actually fucking insane. they've dropped a few nukes worth of explosives. It is wild that it's been 8 months. Like, it's obscene. It's absolutely obscene. And this is the thing, like, Israel has completely failed. Whatever objective, it's been 8 months of this nonstop horror. They've failed to defeat Hamas. So they're trying to do this bullshit now, like, even after they've failed. All they've proven that they can do, all that the IDF and Israel has proven that they could do, is blow up hospitals and schools and kids sleeping in tents and kill families and journalists and doctors and nurses and patients. That's all that they've proven that they could do. Hamas still nowhere near being defeated. In fact, Israel keeps pulling out of places in Gaza where they go in because they keep taking losses to Hamas. Because they're not waging a war against Hamas, and they never have been. They have never been waging war against Hamas. That was always an excuse. It was never accurate. They've been waging war on the people of Gaza for the last 8 months. Like, look at this image in front of you. Like, this is not about Hamas. And that's basically the offer that's being made with this peace deal. Right? That's the offer that's being made. Accept this peace deal, which of course includes total demilitarization and surrender, or we're going to keep this up. We're going to keep bombing civilian infrastructure and killing women and children and men as well, whoever we can. We're going to keep killing civilians unless you just quit, unless you surrender. Like, that's not a legitimate military. Like, that's not some kind of legitimate peace offer. That's a hostage situation where they're just saying, we're going to continue killing innocent people until you just quit. And the United States, I pointed this out on Twitter today, the United States is trying to act like some kind of neutral arbiter. Oh, we're very generously trying to broker some peace deal here. We're this neutral arbiter that's trying to broker this peace deal through diplomacy while they're sending the bombs that's doing this. They're providing the bombs that are doing this, and then at the same time they're like, oh, we're working behind the scenes nonstop to find some diplomatic solution. Like, that's not legitimate. You're backing one side of this conflict militarily. You're paying for all this shit. And then you're saying, oh, we're trying to find some solution. Like, no one believes this. And they're really saying, like, oh, Hamas is the reason that there can't be a ceasefire. That's the reason, because they won't accept this generous offer that we're putting together. That's the reason. Like, it's just totally obscene. And this is as close as they come to admitting it. Let me see here. This is as close as they come to admitting it. With this fucking ghoul, Matt Miller.
Mentioned the president's remarks, which included the idea that as long as Hamas lives up to its commitment, there could be, and I quote, the cessation of hostilities permanently. And you say that is an Israeli proposal. So the government of the State of Israel is signed up to a proposal that there could be a permanent end to hostilities and Hamas still in existence in a meaningful way.
No, they are signed up to an agreement that leads to a permanent cessation of hostilities, but with a number of provisions that have to be negotiated to get there at the end of the phase.
But if the provision...
But I say, I'm not going to negotiate all those provisions in public. I talked about this a good deal yesterday, about the fact that one of the principles the secretary outlined in Tokyo in November is that there cannot be continued rule of Hamas in Gaza after October 7th. I'm sorry, after the end of this conflict, and that's what we're committed to.
No, but I understand that...
How is that? But that's part of your peace deal. That's not a peace deal. That's demanding that one side surrenders, or we're going to keep killing civilians. Like, that's not a peace deal, right? They can't defeat them militarily. It's been 8 months. They haven't even come close to defeating Hamas militarily. They're politically stronger than ever, and now this is our peace deal where we have to agree that like they have nothing to do with anything in this sustained ceasefire situation, as if there won't just be the next resistance group. Like, as long as this occupation exists, like we said, look at the West Bank and what that looks like. Like, there won't be the next resistance group. It's just it's complete bullshit. It's completely insane. Yeah, it's the same as their deal to Russia. Just leave Ukraine. Exactly. Leave Ukraine and let us turn it into a NATO military base. That's our offer. And when they say no, it's like, look how belligerent they are. Like, yeah, they're going to take a deal where the terms are you die. Again, it's not a peace deal when you can't defeat one side of this conflict militarily, and you just say, okay, if you want us to stop killing kids, you have to give up. You have to surrender and stop fighting. Like, that's not that's not anything.
Be the dissolution of Hamas. Why would Hamas sign up to get that ball rolling?
Because they don't want to see continued conflict,
And that's it. That's a hostage situation. Why would Hamas sign up for something that requires them to completely like dissolve themselves? Because they don't want to see more people dead. That's their peace. That's their generous peace deal that they're offering.
Palestinian people dying. They don't want to see war in Gaza. They want to see reconstruction of Gaza. Now, look, I will grant you one thing. I said this to Matt yesterday. It may be that Sinwar decides that he is safe in a tunnel and his interests have diverged from the people of Gaza. And so he's not willing to agree to a ceasefire, and he's not willing to look at this proposal and say it requires good faith negotiations to get from phase 1 to phase 2. So I'm not going to accept it because I'm safe and I don't have any interest in the Palestinian people who continue to suffer the ravages of war. But I will say, if you look at the deal that's on the table, it is manifestly in the interest of the Palestinian people, is manifestly in the interest of the Israeli people, is manifestly in the interest of the world. And so that's why we'll continue to push for it. And if Hamas really does represent the interests of the Palestinian people, as they say over and over, it's without a doubt that they'll take this deal.
Like, this is so psychotic. It is so psychotic. If they really cared about Palestinians, they would stop fighting. And then we would start being nice. Again, you know what the Israeli occupation looks like. And it looked like when Hamas is not involved, and it's the West Bank, where people are dehumanized, arrested, beaten, killed every fucking day. And they're really like, oh, if they actually cared about the people of Palestine, they would just give up, surrender, stop fighting, and then there would be peace. Like, this is just, it's completely delusional. It's a weaselly little liar, dude. It's honestly insane. And then, meanwhile, though, the atrocities continue. Here's last night. An Israeli airstrike on a school housing thousands of displaced Palestinians has killed dozens of people and injured many more.
I'm currently in a school that was targeted by the Israeli forces with at least 3 airstrikes at 1:30 a.m. in the morning. People were sleeping when the Israeli forces targeted them. All of the floor is filled with blood. Children, women are terrified, but unfortunately, they don't have anywhere to go. They're still sheltering in the school.
They've dropped more bombs than all of World War II combined. And again, America's providing all these bombs. America provides the bombs that kill Palestinian women and children, and men as well, who also don't deserve to be murdered arbitrarily. They pretend that there's some kind of arbiter, some neutral arbiter to generously negotiate this peace deal that involves the Palestinian resistance completely just surrendering arbitrarily. And then they say Israel's going to keep killing people until they agree to it. And we're supposed to see like, oh wow, look at America's role here. Look at the Biden administration. This brilliant progressive Biden administration diplomacy here. It's so psychotic. It really is. Meanwhile, there's like stories leaking. This is from the New York Times. Inside the base where Israel has detained thousands of Gazans. CNN did a story about this too recently. Like, even Western media is starting to talk about how horrifying this shit is. Like, the details about this desert detention camp. Look at this image. Look at this image. Is it traditionally, like throughout history, when you see images like this, is it the good guys on that side of the fence or the other side of the fence? The details in this story are fucking insane that this is being allowed to continue. And America is literally saying if Hamas cares about Palestinians, they'll just give up. Israel phasing out use of desert detention camp after CNN investigation detailing abuses. And this came from an Israeli whistleblower. It's not more than World War II, but it's worse than like the firebombing of Dresden. It's worse than several major cities that were bombed in World War II.
تيجي بدك تاكل كله مش عارف ياكل. انا قاعد هيك 23 يوم 23 يوم عن 100 سنه. انا اخذونا من الساعه 3 العصر.
In at least one case, doctors had to amputate a limb where they were from the restraints. Dr. Mohammed Al-Ran headed the surgical unit at Gaza's Indonesian hospital, one of the first to be raided and shut down by Israel. Pictured on the day of his release from a detention camp. The surgeon. A surgeon at a hospital. And just like when we look at this stuff, remember like the shit from Matt Miller. All this stuff. Oh, Hamas needs to agree to this deal if they care about the Palestinian people. We're so alarmed by the suffering of the Palestinian people. If only Hamas would agree to this deal where they surrender and stop fighting and voluntarily disarm and demilitarize. And like CNN and Western media are starting to do stories about this. Like I feel like that's significant. That's how bad things are getting. That CNN and the New York Times are starting to do these kinds of stories. And people are still going to say, oh, it's anti-Semitic to like insinuate that there's some similarity between Israel and the Nazis. This is from this leaked UN report about the Palestinian prisoners at Sde Timan Desert Concentration Camp. According to a leaked UN report, one prisoner said interrogators made me sit on something like a hot metal stick, and it felt like fire. And I'm sorry that this is like upsetting and uncomfortable, but like these are the people who we've supported unequivocally, nonstop, for the last 8 months. And again, America's been totally financing this war. Canada has stood by it. And we're still blaming Hamas, and we're still saying it's Hamas's fault that this is happening. The only democracy in the Middle East. Like, listen to this shit. This is what we're supporting. And you have Matt Miller and the United States government and Biden saying this is going to continue until Hamas just gives up. Mr. Al-Hamlawi, the senior nurse, said a female officer had ordered 2 soldiers to lift him up and press his rectum against a metal stick that was fixed to the ground. Mr. Al-Hamlawi said the stick penetrated his rectum for roughly 5 seconds, causing it to bleed and leaving him with unbearable pain. A leaked draft of the UNRWA report detailed an interview that gave a similar account. It cited a 41-year-old detainee who said that interrogators made me sit on something like a hot metal stick and it felt like fire, and also said that another detainee died after they put the electric stick up his anus. And no wonder they're trying to delegitimize UNRWA and trying to kill UNRWA employees, which the United States government and the Canadian government are fully supporting as well. Yeah, and these are the people doing these stories about mass rapes and saying if you support Palestine, you support rapists and sexual violence. I don't know, PM Trio. How is this possible? How is this being allowed to continue? Like, it's insane. It is absolutely insane. And I'm just going to keep reminding you to, when you look at this stuff and think about this stuff, think about what Matt Miller of the Biden State Department is saying about this. If only Hamas would just surrender, all this could stop. If only they would accept our generous peace proposal to voluntarily surrender and disarm and demilitarize. This entire nation needs to go the way of Rhodesia. I mean, how can you keep looking at this stuff and still be like, oh no, but Israel still has a right to exist, though? I mean, like, people are still saying they have a right to defend themselves. But like, you can still, how do you still say, oh yeah, no, this is definitely a nation and a society that should just continue existing. Definitely. This is a nation and society that we should continue fully supporting to the hilt. It is honestly so fucking insane. Again, this is in the New York Times. The New York Times has played a large role in supporting this genocide. The New York Times has been promoting all these fake, phony stories about October 7th and mass rapes and sexual violence. And now the New York Times is reporting on this shit, which should be it seems like an indication that there's possibly some shift happening. But like, what more needs to happen? What more needs to happen? Leaving this alone just invites world war eventually anyway. And we may be headed there anyways, PM Trio, because now it seems like Israel is gearing up for like a more serious war in Lebanon. They've had so much success fighting Hamas that now they want to go and take on Hezbollah in southern Lebanon. Did you see Bibi go to the North settlements and say they're going to open a front against Lebanon? Yeah, this is what I mean. Yeah. Gaza now has the largest population of child amputees in the world. I have that as well. Why won't they accept our generous peace deal? Why won't they just stop fighting? Why won't they just stop fighting and then all this could stop? They are going to get smoked. Yes. Again, it's not a nation or a society that has any legitimacy anymore. Whatever you might have been able to once say about their right to continue existing or whatever, it's gone now. It's gone. I had a relative that said IOF was well trained and effective after October 7th, and Hamas is finished. Been walking that back ever since. Again, this is all they know how to do. This is what they know how to do, is kill and maim little kids. Well, Grandpa Simpson, that's something we've speculated about a lot. Sometimes I think the Zionists want to start a 3 to 4 front war to try to bring the U.S. troops over to help on the ground. I mean, that seems to be like their last desperate play. That's their last desperate play. Let's expand this. I mean, we've been, when they bombed that Iranian embassy, we were speculating on it then. They're talking about a war with Lebanon now. We're talking about it then. It's like they want this to expand because that's the only hope that they have of surviving this. That's the only possible they still have of surviving this. This needs to be seen to be believed. IDF forcibly stop paramedics from saving a life and then attack the patient. And they're telling people to stop fighting. Stop fighting these people. Just stop fighting. Just stop resisting. Like, I know this is fucking upsetting, but it's like, we need to really understand the evil that we're supporting here. How does anyone justify this? Well, a lot of people justify it because there's a guy on the blue team in the White House right now, and that's it. That's as much as they think about it. Just carry on with your email job. I mean, it's I don't know. Like, what are you supposed to say about it? Just every day, it's new horrors. Every day, new atrocities. Remember the horrific video depicting a Palestinian baby whose head was decapitated in the Rafah 10 massacre? His name was Ahmed. His 13-year-old brother has spoken out about this. Ahmed's 13-year-old brother. He loved playing on the trampoline, soccer, playing with cats. I couldn't handle seeing my brother without a head. I missed them all. His head and left leg were cut off. He was wearing black pants and an orange shirt. And these motherfuckers really want to go and say like it's Hamas's fault that this isn't stopping. Please, like, why won't they accept our generous peace offer? All the fucking stories about beheaded babies that were talked about, fake, false, did not happen. This is a beautiful little kid. This is a real person. It was. He was an actual real person. He had hopes and dreams, and he liked to play. He's a little fucking kid. And they really have the audacity to sit there and say, like, stop resisting. Just give up. Just give up and this will stop. That's our generous peace offer to you. And like, I don't know, I'm long past the point looking at this type of stuff where I care if there's people in my life that think, oh, Rob's gone too far down this rabbit hole. Oh no, Rob, things Rob says about this stuff makes me very uncomfortable. Makes me feel very unsafe. I don't fucking care anymore. I do not care. I don't want anyone in my life that's gonna make excuses for this. I don't fucking care if you have family there that you've visited before. It's a fucking sick, grotesque society. Here's Kamala Harris trying to appear on Jimmy Kimmel, do some funny comedy bits with Jimmy Kimmel.
15,000 children died because of you! Stop the genocide! You're a murderer! 15,000 children!
And Code Pink is doing this kind of stuff very bravely, whether it's at Jimmy Kimmel. Code Pink is doing so much important work right now at these hearings, showing up in these hearings. And what is the story being told about Code Pink? Oh, they're being funded by China. Who gives it? Even if they were, who cares? Who gives a shit? Who cares? I hope they are funded by China. I hope China funds Code Pink and every other fucking imaginable resistance group that's going to do everything that they can to put pressure on this to stop it. It's not even true, but I would be thrilled if it was true. And fucking Hollywood celebrity Jimmy Kimmel is doing like comedy.
You're interrupting my flow.
You're interrupting my flow, says Jimmy Kimmel, when you're talking about dead kids.
Anybody else? If anyone else has anything to say, this is the time.
1.9 million people!
And Democrats just invited Netanyahu to speak in Congress. And what's crazy about that is that like even like big like vocal Zionist Democrats are like, what are we doing? Like it's actually kind of insane. Like read some of these quotes. While Netanyahu's invitation technically came signed by the entire congressional leadership, including Democrats Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries, we've been absolutely flabbergasted by the breadth and depth of the pushback from Democrats since the invite landed Friday. From the progressive left, Bernie Sanders has railed furiously against the decision in recent days. You do not honor a foreign leader by addressing a joint session of Congress who's currently engaged in creating the worst humanitarian disaster in the modern history of this country, he told Chris Hayes. From the activist Grassroots, Leah Greenberg, the co-executive director of Indivisible, called the decision a disaster and told us her group later today would be calling members on Congress to publicly announce they'll skip the speech. What are we doing here? Why would we be giving a platform to someone who we know is actively hostile to Democrats, who has repeatedly demonstrated that he is not negotiating in good faith? From the old line establishment, Senate Majority Whip Dick Durbin and former House Majority Leader Steny Hoyer. These guys are like AIPAC super soldiers. Both among AIPAC's earliest and closest supporters have spoken out against the invitation. There will be a lot of disruption and it will not be helpful for Israel or its supporters, he says. It makes no sense. I thought their whole strategy with containment is to blame Netanyahu for all of this, change one person in government, and carry on with the Zionist state. This is the amazing thing. It's like they keep getting opportunity after opportunity to cut this guy loose, and they just keep fucking supporting him. Not only supporting him, but like bringing him to Congress. And I will say as well, when you get from the progressive left and Bernie Sanders quotes here, talking about, and I agree with what Bernie's saying here, but Bernie took way too long to get on board with criticizing this, and is simultaneously on one hand criticizing it and talking about the humanitarian disaster, and on the other hand saying, go vote for Joe Biden. Go vote for my friend Joe Biden, who's funding all of this, who has supported all of this, who, according to recent reporting in Wall Street Journal, doesn't know what the fuck is even going on anymore. But the orange man is bad, though. We got to watch out for that orange man. Everything about it is just so sickening. Then you have this kind of stuff. I mentioned this yesterday. This report from Prem Tucker. The New York Times and Haaretz report Israel ordered a secret digital operation on U.S. lawmakers, especially black Democrats, that spread misinformation and anti-Arab sentiment and attacked pro-Palestinian Americans to sway public opinion and influenced the lawmakers to fund Israel's military. No, you won't see the boy, the absolute boy, Jezza, embarrassing himself like Bernie. No, you won't. Did you see the clip of Biden reaching for the invisible chair? Yes, I did. This man does not know what the fuck is going on. Israel secretly targeted American lawmakers with Gaza war influence campaign. But remember, when Russia throws a few rubles towards Facebook memes, that's this like, it's basically an act of war. It's basically an act of war when Russia promotes some Facebook memes. In an attempt to sway global public opinion on the war in Gaza, fake accounts and sites spread pro-Israel and Islamophobic content. The operation was orchestrated by Israel's Diaspora Affairs Ministry and run by a political campaigning firm. Israel secretly targets U.S. lawmakers with influence campaign on Gaza war. And again, this is in the New York Times. Like, I think it is notable, despite the role that the New York Times has played in promoting this over the last 8 months. It does seem like there's a shift happening where New York Times and CNN and these Western media outlets are starting to really do some actual journalism about this, which is fascinating. Israel's Ministry of Diaspora Affairs ordered the operation, which used fake social media accounts urging U.S. lawmakers to fund Israel's military, according to officials and documents about the effort. But you know what? We got to ban TikTok, though, because that's a Chinese influence op where they're just magically turning young people against Israel through some kind of devious Chinese trickery. The invisible chair is fake news. Well, I mean, you can still see, perhaps it is. I'm seeing that there was indeed a chair there. There's plenty of reporting and what we can see with our own eyes about Biden's like mental and physical capabilities at this point, regardless of that. And just giving this whole speech about like D-Day as well and the defeat of the Nazis. Giving this big sanctimonious speech about D-Day and the defeat of the Nazis when America played such a strong role in ensuring that Nazism continued to survive and thrive after the end of the war. And it's manifesting itself right now in Israel. Is the country that's most acting as if they're Nazis right now. You know, these Nazi-infested global alliances like NATO. And we're sending weapons. We're sending weapons to Zionist Nazis in Israel, and we're sending weapons to Nazis in Ukraine as well. And who knows where else. But yeah, let's ban TikTok though because of China. Because China bad. It kind of seems like it depends on who we're talking about when we talk about foreign influence op and why those are bad. And again, like reading about all these atrocities too, I have no interest at all in humoring anyone that's like, oh, I support Palestine, I support the Palestinian resistance, but I draw the line at saying anything good about like Iran. I draw the line at saying anything good about Hezbollah or any of these terrorist organizations. Of course, I support Palestinian resistance as this abstract concept. When it actually happens in practice, though, I'm of course against all the people that are funding that and promoting it and contributing to it. I'm against that. I'm only against it as far as this kind of like this theoretical concept, this academic concept. And meanwhile, you've got Hezbollah now targeting these Iron Dome platforms. And if if they do try to start a war in Lebanon coming up, which seems to be something that's like they're actively considering doing, they're going to get wrecked, and they will deserve it. And I will unequivocally, unapologetically support that. The difference between the Hezbollah propaganda and that Qassam Brigade's propaganda is quite funny. Hezbollah loves the action movie music. Sure, Dick Pindarn. Trying to find the next one that I wanted to see. Yeah, this one. You saw nothing, Dakadoon. Yeah, here's the Iron Dome battery thing. They just attacked an army barracks as well. Here's a thread by Amal Saad. Hezbollah's latest escalation along Israel's northern border is a marked departure from prior flare-ups that have occurred since October 8th. This stage transcends merely responding to Israeli attacks and restoring deterrence. It involves conveying new messages and strategies. Hezbollah's deployment of a squadron of drones and the launching of heavy rockets, which set the Galilee on fire on Monday, must be seen in the context of Biden's ceasefire proposal last Friday. While the party didn't take the initiative seriously, seeing it as an electoral ploy, it's nonetheless trying to improve Hamas's negotiating position in the talks with Israel. Hezbollah has maintained from the start that its actions across the border with Israel constitute a solidarity front, but this recent escalation goes beyond attempts to relieve pressure on Gaza by diverting Israel's military capabilities. Hezbollah is now taking on the role of diplomatic force multiplier by creating new realities in preparation for the day after the war. Alongside this role, Hezbollah is also sending very clear messages to Israel regarding the Lebanese front. Today's attack on the Israeli town of Herfish, which left 11 Israelis wounded, was a direct response to Israeli threats to invade Lebanon in the coming days and weeks, and Israel's mobilization of 50,000 troops along the border with Lebanon. Hezbollah seems to be betting that all of these threats and maneuvers amount to little more than saber-rattling because it knows Israel is in a much weaker position than it has ever been to launch such a war. This weakness is due in part to the demonstration of Hezbollah's force. It has reportedly used less than 5% of its arsenal so far. It is also partly due to Hezbollah's unprecedented establishment of a buffer zone inside Israel and the forced displacement of tens of thousands of Israeli settlers in northern Israel, around 40% of whom are reportedly not planning to return to their homes once the war ends. They're going to go back to like Long Island or whatever else. Hezbollah is exploiting the strained relations between the northern settlers and the Israeli government, which are rooted in accusations of the state's neglect for this peripheral region. This aligns with Hezbollah's long-standing approach of undermining Israel through both internal discord and external attacks. And again, so you see the attacks by Hezbollah, targeting these army barracks or targeting these Iron Dome platforms. And meanwhile, Israel is illegally dropping white phosphorus on civilian areas in Lebanon. White phosphorus which burns people alive. Reminder that the last time Israel went to war with Hezbollah, an Israeli commander described what Israel did like this. What we did was insane and monstrous. We covered entire towns in cluster bombs. The head of an IDF rocket unit in Lebanon said regarding the use of cluster bombs and phosphorus shells during the war. Widespread use of white phosphorus in southern Lebanon. 17 municipalities in southern Lebanon since October. Above residential buildings. This is Joe Brandon's Moral Army. There's more images of the heavy Israeli bombardment. That's the whole thing about, they're going to start a war with Lebanon. Like, they've been bombing Lebanon since October. Heavy Israeli bombardment of South Lebanon ongoing. Video of strikes in town of Beit Yahun producing big fires on impact. Whoa. Here's some more analysis of this by Omar Badar. The coming Israel-Lebanon war will change everything. It's shocking how little analysis and commentary there is about its prospects and consequences. What Ben-Gvir doesn't seem to understand is that Lebanon is not tiny, flat, besieged Gaza, and Hezbollah is not Hamas. The cost Israel would absorb for invading Lebanon in pure military terms would be categorically different. All Hezbollah strongholds must be burned down and destroyed. War, Ben-Gvir demanded in a video published on social media platform X on Tuesday. This Haaretz headline is onto something. The public is putting pressure on the government to escalate because they don't want to put up with the status quo in the north, but an escalation will almost certainly make things worse, not better. IDF wants to intensify Lebanon fighting, fears public unaware of consequences. A ceasefire in Gaza may be the only way out of this, but the U.S. political establishment's relationship with Israel is so warped and dysfunctional, they would rather indulge in a genocidal campaign of murder and starvation indefinitely than ever say no to Israel, even with this much at stake. I mean, it's like, I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves here, but it seems like if they really do go ahead with this, more so than they're already doing, because they already are bombing southern Lebanon like we've been seeing since October, but if they do actually try to go through with this may be the beginning of the end for the entire Zionist project. Okay, let's watch a video about Israel's strategy here, about how they have no interest in a ceasefire. They want this long war. There's a video with Brian Becker here we can check out. Before we look at that, though, folks, just remind you, if you can please support this program. I try to do this show every day and talk about this stuff each and every day. Some days are a little more serious than others. Yesterday was less serious, and today is a little bit more serious, obviously, but if you can, please support this program by subscribing or gifting subs.
You can count
I
on
would
me
appreciate it
and
a lot.
good old Rob to,
Every little
talk
bit
you through
helps.
all this.
Thank you, Dick Penderin. It's my birthday month, as Dr. Maggot is pointing out as well. So if you can, please
You can count
do
on me
subscribe and
have
support
good
this
old
program.
Rob to talk you through all this.
Always a big fan of the Rob community. Thank you, encouraging people. Always very, very encouraging.
You can count on me.
Very
and have
encouraging
good old
person.
Rob to talk you through all this.
Comrade Bushy, thank you for the gifted sub as well. That's very cool, Comrade Bushy. I appreciate it. Thank you, Joe,
use the computer to mark up the
for the
size
150
of the account.
bits as well. Thank you for that. We're at 11 out of 35 subs. Possible hype train on the horizon here. It is getting kicked off. Perfect Speller, thank you for the gifted sub. We're at 12 out of 35 subs for the day. So now is a great time to subscribe if you want to as well. You can get all the tiny little images involved in this channel and this platform. You can also get Twitch hype train emotes as well if you subscribe in the next couple of minutes. We got this hype train happening. We're 6% of the way through level 2 or 12 subs out of 35. Do we hear level 3? Do we hear level 3? Once again, folks, I'm sorry to take these moments of doing these calls to action. It's just the nature of doing a show here on Twitch is that I must make the little number go up every single day in order to earn a little bit of a living from doing this show. So if you can, please do continue subscribing or gifting subs. If you gift over 5 subs, you obviously become a elite tier member of the Friendship Triangle system. That's what this community is all about. Instantly go right all the way up to the tippy top through a gift of 5 subs and above. Do we have any other takers? We're at 6% out of level 2 of this hype train. We're at 6%. Do we hear level 3? Probably only 4 or 5 gifted subs would do it. Not only would a generous gift of 5 subs get us to around halfway to the goal for today, would probably unlock the next level of this very cool hype train. One heroic 5 sub gifter could do it.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Thank you, Dick Pendarren, for another gifted sub. I really appreciate that. And I will get to the thread that you sent eventually. I think it's a good way of closing the discussion, actually. The view from the top of the Friendship Triangle is spectacular, folks. The very best, to say the least. One heroic sub gifter could get halfway to the sub goal. Just one heroic 5 sub gifter could do it. What do we think? What do we say? And then we can move on. We can move on and get to this coming video and talk more about this stuff. I would really rather focus on this than have to do this kind of this scammy call to action stuff.
You've just become an elite member of the Friendship Triangle.
Oh wow, Dick Pendarren, thank you for 5 gifted subs. I really appreciate that. That's so cool that you did that. Thank you. That's very generous. Your calls to action called me to action. I guess, well, it's working on somebody, It's working on somebody. Do we hear 20? We're at 18 now to 35. We're halfway to the sub goal. I will move on from this bit as soon as possible. No one is looking forward to that more than me, believe me. But I hope you understand it's just part of the economic realities of doing this show each and every day, is that I have to take a little bit of time to pass around the collection plate, pass around the hat. That's just how it works. Believe me, I would much rather have an actual salary. I would much prefer that. Unfortunately, that's not an option for me. You gotta feed the monkey. It's true. It is true. It is very true. You gotta feed the monkey. Feed the monkey. I told them I was an elite member of the Friendship Triangle. They gave me front row seats to the Trump trial. Good. I'm glad. Very nice. Do we have any other takers, folks? We're 20% of the 3 of this hype train. If possible, there's still time to subscribe and support the show. If you're a brave hero that wants to support the work that I do here on Twitch, please subscribe if you can. Oh, I'm very low energy today. It's hard to do low energy calls to action. My phone.
You can count on me. You're gonna have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Sikalufakis, thank you for another gifted sub as well. Very, very much appreciated. Thank you for that. I try to listen while I drive Uber, so a few days back you were on. As a rider was getting in, we hear, you are now an elite member of the Friendship Triangle. My passenger was very confused, and I laughed and said nothing. That's got to be very funny. That's got to be really funny. What is that? What's the Friendship Triangle? You don't want to know about that. You don't want to hear about that. Let's not get into what that is. Why, it's Twitch's only two-dimensional triangle-shaped friendship access and trickle-down clout tiered reward system. Doesn't that sound nice? Doesn't that sound like something you'd like to be a part of? And by the way, we've got both Encouraging People Always and Farflight community members unsubbed right now. Unsubbed. If there's any heroes that want to bring back our wandering folks back into the flock here. Look at that. What a wonderful community. And then, of course, no alerts go off. It's like Twitch. You know, I'm trying to get people to subscribe to this program, which benefits the Twitch Corporation. We can't do that without the, Pavlovian, little alert system. We need that. We need the alerts so they get the little hit of dopamine. Thank you, Bon, though, for gifting a sub to Farflight. I don't know why all the...
You can count on me. You're gonna have
why
good
does that
Rob
work?
To talk you through all this.
Why did that work and others do not work? Well, that just makes no sense, does it? Bon, thank you for gifting a sub to Farflight. And Kijiji, thanks for gifting a sub to Encouraging People Always. And thank you also to one of the original valued community members, Anus Beard, for a gifted sub as well. Thank you, Anus Beard, for that. I really liked the Pacific Beach theme last night. I liked it too, Diego. I think we had to get more serious today. It's hard to be too serious when you're doing a kind of extended bit like that. I did enjoy it as well. Maybe it's something we can do more often, though. Steel drum medium distance is the vibe. That really did work very well. That worked better than I anticipated. Anyway, thank you everyone for supporting this program. I really do appreciate it so much. Let's look at this breakthrough news video about this whole ceasefire deal and Biden and all that stuff.
We need a new system. We need a new society. We need to demand that which may have sounded impossible.
MAGA Lenin would be funny,
ago,
Joe.
But it's not only realizable, but an
It's hard to do a Lenin
necessity.
impression, though. And if you do want to continue subscribing, the hype train was very successful.
Israel
if you do want to
has
continue
called up-
subscribing, you can feel free to do so. 13 subs to go, which we'll hopefully get to by the end of the day. That Kotsky is very, very bad. It just turns into Leninist Trump, but maybe there's still something there.
Another 50,000 reservists as it prepares for a bigger war in Gaza. Israel is failing in Gaza, and Israel faces global condemnation for the invasion of Rafah.
Meanwhile,
back.
Joe Biden is going around the world or sending his emissaries around the world to say that the problem in reaching a ceasefire is Hamas and the Palestinian resistance. Welcome to the Socialist Program. I'm your host, Brian Becker. Today, we're talking with Leanne Sima Fulihan. She is a Palestinian organizer with the Shut It Down for Palestine Coalition. She is a popular educator, the education director at the People's Forum as well, and she is an editor at 1804 Books. Leanne, welcome back.
It's great to be back, Brian.
Leanne, you saw the news, right? 50,000 more reservists being called up by the Israeli Defense Forces. It's one of two things. It's either a feint in order to put more pressure on Hamas at the negotiating table, or Israel, the Netanyahu government, is in fact preparing for a longer war in Gaza, not going, in fact, for a ceasefire. What's your take?
Netanyahu is definitely preparing for a longer war. Multiple Israeli officials have hinted and actually said directly in other moments that they're considering 2024 to be the war of combat, that they're preparing for many months, if not through the summer, through the end of the year, of more bombardments, more ground operations until they reach their military goal of completely defeating Hamas. And this raise in reservists is a sign of that. Just for context, in the early days of in October, the reservist number, which is usually capped at 300,000, was raised to 360,000. It went back down a little bit under 300,000 as the war developed and as the Israeli society got tired of living in a war economy. And by the reservists, so everyone is aware, are technically people living civilian lives who are told to stop their life and go join armed combat. It was raised up again. We got the news today. I saw the news today to 350,000, and very clearly stated nothing to do with the conflicts in the north with Hezbollah. This is solely for operations in Gaza. So it really does look like that they are not only saying that they want a longer war, they are making preparations for it, and they are committed to it.
Well, let's talk about where we are in the war. Leanne, I've talked to you multiple times over the months. We've tried to make an assessment, not academically, not because it's interesting, but because we are all organizers in building an anti-war movement, a movement in solidarity with the people in Palestine. This coming Saturday on June 8th, tens of thousands of people are going to very dramatically surround the White House. They're going to be wearing red. They're going to be declaring that, quote, we are the red line, when Biden's red line about a Rafah invasion was obviously just ignored by the Israelis. And Biden kept sending big bombs, 1,800-pound bombs, 2,000-pound bombs. So, there's a lot of movement in the streets here in the United States, a lot of solidarity around the world. The battle itself being fought on the ground in Gaza, complicated. The Israeli government targeted another high Iranian official. They killed him with a targeted bombing assassination in Syria, indicating that Netanyahu would like to widen the war. I mean, a lot is in sort of boiling right now. And the Biden administration has appeared in many ways to be like the voice for a ceasefire. They've been saying, we want this ceasefire. This has been a theme of Biden for the couple of weeks. Now Biden has dispatched Blinken and Sullivan and the rest of the crew going around the world saying we're going to get all the countries together for a ceasefire, but they're making it like Hamas is the problem. Again, that's the dominant narrative in the U.S. corporate capitalist-owned media. Hamas is the problem. Hamas won't say yes to a ceasefire. Let's just go over for people the actual facts, because this is a reality turned upside down.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you look at the ceasefire proposal that Biden is saying is Israel's ceasefire proposal, it looks a lot like what Hamas already agreed to many weeks before this. And it was Israel that, as it's been every single time, it was Israel that refused to agree to this proposal on the basis that they would not agree to something that would guarantee an end to the war. And we said it on the show before. It is really telling that Israel is insisting that a ceasefire agreement cannot actually guarantee a permanent end to the military operations. And there's more details to that. One of the other sticking points for them was that they didn't want to have to withdraw all their forces from Gaza. They want to actually maintain a military presence there. If you think about an actual negotiated end to a war, it is common sense that it would have to include a guarantee that the war would actually end. And so it's Israel every single time that has been making these ridiculous demands that the ceasefire agreement would somehow would not hold them to an actual ceasefire. Now, fast forward to now, Biden has proposed this, or has claimed that this is the Israeli proposal. There was an Israeli proposal about a week ago. It's a little unclear how much everyone inside the War Council really agreed to it. We know there's a lot of divisions in the Israeli governing and ruling class. But basically, Biden, he consulted. The news is coming out that Biden did consult with Israel about 2 hours before he made that statement. He said in broad terms what he was going to say. He didn't really go into details. So he notified them, and it seems like what the Israeli proposal was leaving a lot of important parts very ambiguous. And so Biden, to kind of speed up the process, went ahead, made this proposal, said it was Israel that was making the proposal, was much more clear about it, even posted on Twitter the actual phases and what the different phases would be. Something to really...
That was the really amazing thing. Oh, this is Israel's deal. This is Israel's deal. It's like, obviously not. Like, that's so brazen. Hamas, they need to finally agree to Israel's generous proposal here. And Israel's like, we don't want to have anything to do with this. It's like, who is this for? Who is this for? Who is this directed to?
Put a lot of pressure on initially kind of putting pressure on Israel to kind of hold them accountable to an actual ceasefire proposal. But if you listen to what Biden is saying, he is insisting that it's Hamas that needs to agree to it. Now, Hamas only got the actual text of the proposal a couple of days ago. They have consistently shown willingness to be at the negotiating table, to negotiate in good faith.
I don't know, Dr. Asim. I don't know.
Right now in Gaza. In the past 24 hours, another 75 Palestinians have been killed. There have been massacres at 3 refugee camps in central Gaza. There have been bombardments in central Gaza. They're bombing residential areas. There's no functioning hospital right now. By the mid-July, the estimation is that over 1 million Palestinians will be facing starvation by mid-July, if not earlier. These are conditions of genocide, and Hamas the world is being told that it's Hamas who's holding up the negotiations. Netanyahu said on
even
Monday,
Pramila Jayapal, the Progressive Caucus,
Biden
is saying
didn't
this.
really properly represent the ceasefire proposal, that there's some details there that are missing. They're insisting on this concept of having perhaps a temporary pause.
There's a few minor details that he didn't talk about, like Hamas having to arbitrarily surrender and demilitarize. We kind of forgot to mention that whole part as well.
And then being allowed to go back in and finish Hamas. That's their proposal. They don't want a ceasefire. They want a temporary pause. They want to relieve their own internal pressure, get the hostages through some sort of exchange, and then be able to go back in with the check mark of the United States. So that's the situation right now. Hamas has said consistently, we are willing to sign a ceasefire agreement. We want the bare minimum, which is a permanent ceasefire and the withdrawal of the Israeli occupation forces from Gaza. Israel is saying, we want a pause, we want our hostages, and then we want to go back and destroy you. So if you think about it in those clear terms, it's really not negotiations. It's a lot of theatrics on the part of the White House to try to convince the world that it's Hamas that's holding up the negotiation process.
No one buys
But if you
this.
actually look at it, it's very clear who's doing the holding up. It's Israel, and it's the United States paving the way for them to do that.
Like, again, I get the idea that this is all just for like the zombie Democratic partisans. But like no one else believes this shit. People are saying even Jeff Tiedrick is questioning things now. You know who else has gone? You know who else has gone really like anti-Israel? That guy Eric Garland. Remember that guy, the game theory guy? the like Hillary, Bernie was like a Russian disinformation up guy. He's super like into talking about the role that Mossad and the IDF is playing throughout all this. He's become based. Eric Garland, the classic game theory guy. Biden shat his pants on D-Day. I think it's entirely possible. It's funny because I've been watching The Sopranos season 5, where it's like the junior dementia storyline. That's what Biden's going to start doing. He's going to start just wandering around. He's going to wander around, try to find the swimming pool that he used to work at, walking around in his slippers and his bathrobe or something.
One thing I think that makes this somewhat confusing to people, of course, there's the confusion that comes from deliberate lies, propaganda. I mean, of course, that's part of warfare. But there's also kind of
Looking
mixed
for corn
signals,
pop.
Leanne, from the White House, from Biden. You can tell Biden really wants a ceasefire in one sense. I mean, he really wants it because his standing in, as he runs for reelection in 2024 is continually diminished. We had CNN covered that Palestine conference, the People's Conference for Palestine. It emphasized that Biden can lose Michigan now, where there's a large number of Arab American voters, 200,000. Biden wants the ceasefire. And they're also angry with Netanyahu. They don't agree with Netanyahu's obstinacy, his refusal to budge. There are statements. I want to play a couple of clips from a senior government spokesperson, Matthew Miller. We have 3 clips that I want to play where they're also kind of telling Netanyahu, you're not learning the experience from the experiences of other counterinsurgencies, including what the U.S. did in Afghanistan or what the U.S. did in Vietnam, in both cases where the U.S. lost. Matthew Miller is basically saying Israel is going to lose. So there's this one signal where you see frustration on the part of the Biden administration. You see that they're angry at Netanyahu when Biden was interviewed by Time Magazine and was asked, does he think that Netanyahu is continuing the war, prolonging the war for his own narrow interests? And Biden actually said, well, one would have to come to that conclusion. Then Biden walked it back, and his aides walked it back and said, well, no, that's not what he meant. Like lots of mixed signals. But anyway, I want to again try to parse some of this and try to get to our own assessment of what's going on. Let's play first. I'm again, it's 3 clips from Matthew Miller. It's a press conference from this week. Let's start with that.
Endless conflict in Gaza in pursuit of some idea of total victory is not going to make Israel safer.
All right, so it's not going to make Israel safer, right, Leanne? So it's all for what's best for Israel. Now let's play a second clip where Matthew Miller again spins this out. And I want to try to parse this for our audience. Is this like sort of face saving for Israel? Is the Biden administration genuine? Is the dialectic here so dominant, the contradiction so dominant that we really are hearing different things? And as a result, there's no clear U.S. policy, and that gives Netanyahu like a big enough door to drive a truck through. Anyway, let's play the next clip.
It's just going to leave Israel bogged down in Gaza, and it's going to exacerbate the security challenges that they face in the north of Israel. It's going to exacerbate the security challenges they face in the West Bank. It's going to exacerbate the security challenges they face against Iran and the proxies that it funds, because it makes it more difficult for Israel to work with its allies and its partners in the neighborhood.
All right, so Leanne, I want to get your take on those 2 clips, and then I have a third one. But what he's basically saying is Israel is going to be bogged down, that they can't really succeed. They're not going to be able to control the West Bank. The northern part of Israel that shares a border with Lebanon is going to be endlessly at risk. What's your thought?
Well, first, when hearing him speak, it's funny because the only thing I can think of is that he's actually talking about the United States. that it's also the US that would get bogged down if Israel continues the war and draws in Iran, Lebanon, and other forces and makes this into a regional war like they are signaling that they're doing. It's the United States that's been bogged down in that region for so long. And like you said earlier, the United States has repeatedly tried to, and even in public television, say, why doesn't Israel learn from our mistakes in the past? You can't necessarily completely destroy your enemy in this kind of context. In a sense, the United States is right. And we've talked about it before. When you're trying to fight against a colonized people who actually have the kind of self determination and steadfastness to withstand any kind of attack, it's a lot harder than one would think. The wealth and weapon strength that the oppressor and the colonizer has in a huge asymmetrical advantage doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be an easy win. We've seen that throughout history, and we're seeing it now. We've also seen it in the history of United States occupation and invasion in Iraq and other places in the Middle East. So in a sense, they're trying to tell Israel, learn from our mistakes, partly because the United States doesn't want to get bogged down itself. It's been trying for a long time now,
Too
many
late for
years,
that.
to extricate itself from the mess that it created in the Middle East. It wants to move on to other counter-hegemonic threats to U.S. Global domination, like China, Russia, and others. And Israel is bogging the United States down. So I think that's what we're seeing. It's been a couple of weeks now, months, where the United States has been signaling that they have a difference
Take
in
care, Barry.
tactical assessment than Israel does. But Israel also is different than the United States. The whole premise of the Israeli project is essentially based on the Zionist idea, the Zionist claim to the land. It's using religion, manipulating religion to claim the land. And so Netanyahu's calculations, besides the fact that he doesn't want to go to jail, and the longer that he's in power and executing a war, he delays his jail sentence, he also is using the fact that there is a fervor that has been created in order to build people up to become settlers or colonizers. And a lot of that is not going to be appeased by ending this phase of the war with a ceasefire agreement and moving to other forms of domination that the United States is an expert on, like soft power, third-party proxies, nonprofits, systems, trying to take away the teeth from the Palestinian resistance in other means that the United States has used across the world.
Diego, thank you for gifting a sub. I'm sorry that didn't lead to an alert. I don't know what's going on with the fucking alerts lately. I appreciate the gifted sub, but Diego, I mentioned in the Discord that you're in sub jail right now, so I wasn't joking around about that. You have supported this show enough. You take a break. Take a break. I know you have stuff to figure out. Focus on that. I really believe me. I appreciate it. Don't get me wrong. I really appreciate it. But you are in sub jail. I don't want any more gifted subs from Comrade Social Distancing. I'm going to return the next one. Okay? And I need it. Like, I do. But, like, I'm serious. No more. No more until further notice. Do what you want. Maybe apologize decades later or not lose, but actually achieve your objective. I know one thing, which is that fucking little weasel, Matt Miller, in addition to like a lot of other people right now, but like Matt Miller in particular, I would love to see that little fucking worm on trial for abetting crimes against humanity. I would love to live to see a day where that actually happens. You know? As like Nuremberg, we've talked about before, Nuremberg needed to go way, way farther than it actually did. But Nuremberg did establish that I was just following orders isn't a valid excuse. It's not a valid excuse. And like this whole administration and really the entire United States government needs to be held responsible for this. But there's certain individuals that I think I would take a certain real pleasure in seeing them squirm. Kirby really leans into the evil. Oh yeah, he's full like Verhoeven apocalyptic game show host psycho. Truly send that smug ass to the gulag. Absolutely. Nothing would make me happier. After Biden croaks from being old, I hope they all got. Yeah, and I hope Biden has protesters at his funeral. But Matt Miller in particular, I would take a certain real satisfaction in that.
Which would
Blinken,
be more
of course,
palatable,
yeah.
most likely, or the White House thinks would be more palatable to the U.S. public. But, they've been wrong time and time again. The U.S. public is really seeing through the lies of the White House. So those are kind of the reflections I have initially on that. It's definitely showing a difference in tactics, but not necessarily showing that the United States is peeling away from the Israeli project. They're just trying to move it in a different path for the same goal.
Yeah, and the argument is entirely like what's best for Israel. It's not like, hey, this is actually killing thousands of Palestinians. Hey, this is a war crime. Hey, this is actually genocide. That's not the argument. The argument is you're not going to be effective militarily. So it's an argument without morality, without ethics. There's no compass that relates to sort of a genuine concern about people. It's kind of realpolitik when it comes to what Israel can accomplish and not accomplish militarily. We have one more clip. It's in the same vein. It's again from Matthew Miller. I think it's important for people to hear it because we're trying to sort of get through the clutter, the mixed messages, all of the noise, and try to understand what the U.S. is actually doing.
What our position is that you cannot eliminate Hamas just through military means, just through a military.
But this is just a couple days ago. And now this same motherfucker he admits openly that Israel can't defeat Hamas through these military means. And then days later, they have to accept they have to accept Israel's peace proposal, which involves Hamas just arbitrarily surrendering. They have to arbitrarily, that's part of this generous peace deal that we're offering to this people that we've admitted they can't have any hope of actually defeating militarily. So the offer we're proposing is that Israel is just going to continue murdering civilians and committing atrocities and massacres unless they just give up, unless they just quit and voluntarily surrender and disarm and demilitarize. It's insane.
Campaign. And this has been the experience of the United States in counterterrorism activities all around the world, that a military means by itself, without some kind of political path for
give away all your leverage and we'll do the right thing.
Ultimately prove ineffective.
It's ineffective. It's not gross. It's not disgusting. It's not outrageous. It's ineffective. Okay, so let's take that, Leanne, on its face. Well, what did the U.S. do in Afghanistan? They had a political project that wasn't only an invasion. They built up a puppet government right from the get-go. They did so-called nation building. They created a whole network of NGOs financed by the United States and NATO Western powers to create civil society as they defined it. What happened in Afghanistan? The U.S. was not only defeated, but as the U.S. was withdrawing, or even announced that it was withdrawing, the existing political project that the U.S. had sponsored in Kabul, the government of Afghanistan, collapsed, and not in days. I'm talking about hours. They collapsed in hours. There was no one prepared to fight for that government.
Same thing with South
the
Vietnam.
US is sort of wagging its finger at Netanyahu, saying, "Look, you can't simply kill people. You have to build up a political solution."
Yeah, this is what I've been saying, Dr. Maggot. One of the most mind-boggling things that just get lost in all this is the implicit assumption that the U.S. can be and is acting as a good faith mediator while they're supplying the bombs that one side of this conflict is using to commit atrocity after atrocity and massacre after massacre against the other side. They're supplying the bombs and weapons and intelligence, and then saying oh yeah, we're gonna be this good faith negotiator here. Ludicrous. It's totally ludicrous.
experience in Afghanistan. That shows that too fails. What about Vietnam? I mean, the U.S. didn't just drop bombs on Vietnam. It created the South Vietnamese puppet government. It created the South Vietnamese military.
They did it in
And
South
what
Korea
happened to
as
that?
well.
As soon as the United States left in January 1973, within months, that government too started collapsing, and all of Vietnam was then liberated by the National Liberation Front and the North Vietnamese military. In other words, Vietnam finally was reunited. So this sort of wisdom, the sagacious advice provided by U.S. imperialism and its spokespersons like Matthew there, it's also bogus. I mean, people have to realize that these are not great, wise thinkers. Nothing they've tried succeeds against the people's war. And, you think about Vietnam, that war was led by communists. You think about Afghanistan, well, the resistance in Afghanistan was decidedly not communist.
Yeah, because the communists in Afghanistan were completely decimated by the U.S. funding the Taliban to begin with. And then that's what they were left with. Similar to Iraq as well.
In Palestine, there's religious opposition and leftist
Hell yeah, risk
opposition.
inverse.
In other words, it's not just one thing. It's not just Hamas. In a way, it's not really about the ideology of whether it's the Taliban or the Communist Party of Vietnam or different sectors in Palestine. Colonized people don't want to live under foreign occupation. They find a way of resisting. So if you take Matthew's comments sort of in a different way and say, look, these military efforts to crush the desire of masses of people to live free and independent will not succeed. If you interpret it that way, which is really the only way you can interpret this, because what is the Israeli project for Gaza short of military annihilation? They have no solution. You can see that in a way, the U.S. knows that the Israelis can't win, but they're putting actually just a spin on it while they're trying to pressure from some kind of settlement, mainly at the expense of Hamas. Anyway, that's my view.
I share your view, and I think it is almost comical to see, if you actually look clearly at what the United States is proposing as solutions, like you said, have actually all been failures. If you look at them with a clear eye, what they've done every single time is try to spin it, and that's clearly what they're trying to do right now. Biden said on that Friday when he made the announcement about the proposal, he said, Israel has basically defeated Hamas. Like, you've basically already won, by the way. Like, you've done enough destruction so that we can just call this a victory and move on. It's semantics. It's wordsmithing. It's trying to claim a victory when there is none, to justify moving to a different tactic. And like you said, the United States is really used to losing. And I'm not sure that they're ready to get bogged down in another long series of defeats, because let's be clear, if Netanyahu draws on this war for another season, another year, we can't expect that he's going to have a different result. He's going to continue massacring the entire social fabric, an entire population, which is only going to continue to lead to outrage on an international level, both geopolitically and popularly. And also, he's going to continue to face the same resistance on the ground, if not stronger. A colonized people has something much stronger than the occupier does, which is a conviction to fight for their own people and to fight for self-determination, for dignity, for a noble cause, which is not the same as those reservists that have been called in today, the extra 50,000, the hundreds of thousands of reservists who would rather be at home, going out to restaurants and living a civilian life. This is not this is not a preferred option for the occupation and their army. So that's a really big factor. If they go on another couple of months, it's going to be another couple months of defeat. So either way, the option is the only real political solution. The only real political solution is self-determination for the Palestinian people to decide their own political path forward, an end to the genocide. That's the only right thing to do, an immediate end to the genocide and an end to the occupation. Of course, that's not in U.S. interests. It's certainly not in Israel's interests. So let's see all the different acrobatics that they try to make to try to avoid that and come up with an alternative. But the reason why negotiations have not yet succeeded, not now and not throughout history, is never because of the Palestinians. It's because the United States and Israel are not willing to consider actual political solutions.
Yeah. The political solution that is kind of off the table is to have a democratic Palestine where Muslims, Christians, and Jews live as equals. Like that's actually the solution. And that would allow the Palestinian people who have been dispossessed, driven out of their homes, to return. The Palestinians have the right to return. It's not simply a chant at demonstrations. It's part of international law. It's ensconced in UN resolutions, starting back in 1948, in fact, that the people driven by Zionist terrorist organizations, and I'm using the language carefully. That's not hyperbolic language. These are armed militias, terrorist militias, who use the tactic of terror to drive people from their homes, like what happened at Deir Yassin and beyond. So the Palestinians have the right to return. Muslims, Christians, and Jews could live together. White America in the South, or at least white racist ruling class America, which had lots of support from all classes of white people in the South, they made it seem impossible that there could ever be a society in the United States that did not have apartheid. But formally, apartheid ended. Not fully, not really in many ways, but legally and formally it ended with the passage of the 1964 Civil Rights Act. 5 years before that, or 10 years before that, people would have said, no, you can't do that. That'll never happen. That'll never happen. And it did happen. Again, that was another national liberation movement, but it was happening inside the United States from Black America, fighting for not only equality and civil rights, but for liberation as a people, as an oppressed nation. So you can see all kinds of examples throughout history where the political solution that seems off the table is actually at hand. It actually is completely realizable, but it requires justice, and it requires saying no to the imperialist or capitalist or colonial solutions. So again, we can't lose track of that. Just because the American imperialist media says that can never happen, it doesn't mean it can't happen. It can happen. It will happen. And that's what we mean when we say a free Palestine. Let's just keep talking, though, for a little bit more about the contradictions that makes U.S. policy seem incoherent. Biden lays out in the press this 3-point plan for a ceasefire. Phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, very detailed, right? Or seemingly so. At the same time, the Republican Party, joined by the Democratic leadership in Congress, Chuck Schumer in the Senate and Jeffries in the House, extend an invitation to Benjamin Netanyahu to come and speak before both houses of Congress.
Insane.
Now, what does that say to Netanyahu? It says even if Biden was serious about a ceasefire proposal, Netanyahu can just say, to hell with you. We're not going to do that. And what are you going to do about it? I'm going to be at your both houses of Congress, and I'm going to get standing ovations from your party, Joe Biden, because that's what they'll do. Anyway, let's just talk about that. I want to go back to, I have a clip. I see where we have some B-roll showing Netanyahu speak. I want to go to a clip where actually this is where Netanyahu came before the U.S. Congress at the invitation of the Republicans during the Obama administration, when Obama was trying to negotiate the nuclear arms deal with Iran so that U.S. could, quote, pivot to Asia.
Yeah, and he could just come in and
endless war in the
denounce
Middle East.
the sitting president.
This was Obama's top foreign policy goal at that time,
which
and
Biden
Netanyahu
walked away
came
from.
To both houses of Congress and attacked Obama's foreign policy in Washington, D.C. I mean, talk about emboldening Netanyahu. Anyway, let's listen to this clip or watch the clip, and then I'll get your take on all of this.
No matter on which side of the aisle you sit, you stand with Israel.
Everyone stands up.
And I will always be grateful to President Obama for that support.
But big
this
butt
Capitol
coming.
Dome helped build our Iron Dome. We must all stand together to stop Iran's march of conquest, subjugation, and terror.
I just love playing this clip. Just a reminder, whatever anyone says about how the U.S. is unhappy with Netanyahu, Netanyahu is like in the saddle here. He doesn't feel threatened by the United States, not at all.
Certainly not. I mean, that clip is amazing because it just shows the reality of the U.S. position. It's actually incredible that he says no matter which side of the aisle you sit on. Netanyahu is boldly claiming in front of U.S. government bipartisan support for U.S. foreign policy for Israel for no matter what it does, and he's setting the terms for it. I mean, that shouldn't lead us to one of the other kinds of misinformation that's circulating, which is that somehow Israel controls the United States. Certainly, we have to still be very clear that the United States basically sponsors Israel because it helps its own imperialist interests in the region. There's other things that the United States is doing to embolden Netanyahu. They just signed another $3 billion.
Yeah, we watched that earlier, Kev.
The transfer of F-37s just this week. I mean, the flow of aid, no matter how much Biden is showing any sort of public difference with Netanyahu, the flow of weapons and money and aid has been consistent. It's really never stopped. Netanyahu certainly is not feeling the pressure, especially with this new invitation to come and speak that shows, again, bipartisan unity around supporting Netanyahu, no matter what he does and no matter how much it goes against the United States' particular interests in the current moment.
Yeah, and they, all you have to say is Iran. Iran is a threat, and both sides of the aisle rise up and give big applause. This was Obama's number one foreign policy achievement was the Iran nuclear arms
deal. Which Biden walked
Iran
away from.
Allowed itself to be have very intrusive inspections of its own nuclear facilities. Like the U.S. would not allow the International Atomic Agency to send thousands of advisors or inspectors and inspect all of U.S. nuclear power plants. There are occasional inspections, but these are intrusive inspections. And Iran agreed that they would not enrich uranium such that it could create a nuclear weapon at least in a shorter period of time. So you had foreigners, including U.S. imperialist weapons inspectors, coming into Iran to do that. That was a big concession by Iran. And I know inside of Iran, quite a number of people probably thought, what are we doing? We're sacrificing our sovereignty. We're allowing this indignity to happen to us. But the government in Iran said, no, it's worth it because we want to lift the sanctions. We want to have some economic relief. We want
never
to
trust the imperialists
for Iranians who are suffering from all of these international economic sanctions.
Never trust the imperialists, not even for a moment.
And so the Iranians did it. And still, Biden has stuck with Trump's decision to smash the Iran nuclear arms deal. I see we're playing on B-roll here, Netanyahu's little cartoon.
This is amazing.
Clip. It's not simply B-roll. I want people to listen to Netanyahu's presentation at the United Nations. This is the head of state of the government of Israel, the one that the U.S. Congress coddles. Let's listen.
So how much enriched uranium do you need for a bomb? And how close is Iran to getting it? Well, let me show you. Brought a diagram for you. Here's a diagram. This is a bomb. This is a fuse. In the case of Iran's nuclear plans to build a bomb. This bomb has to be filled with enough
This is all they
uranium.
need.
And Iran has to go through 3 stages. Where's Iran?
Did you like the cartoon, Leanne? Did you enjoy it? Did you feel you learned
This is
a
all
lot
they've ever
about
needed.
nuclear technology? And here's the bomb, and oh, here's a fuse. By the way, Israel, everybody, has between 200 and 500 nuclear weapons. Israel, unlike Iran, does not belong to the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty regime, meaning Israel does not allow international inspectors into Israel. Thus, Israel's nuclear arsenal, which certainly exists and has
We can take a look at that in a bit, Kev, because we did talk about, you know, the increasing likelihood of an escalation in southern Lebanon, and we talked about the ways that Hezbollah is no longer really acting like deterrence and no longer really acting as if they're just trying to strengthening a Palestinian negotiating position, and are starting to take an even more active role. So it does seem like shit is about to pop off. Like we were saying, if Israel does go through with it, it very well may spell the end of the entire project, because they will get wrecked. And the only hope they have of not getting wrecked is if the United States directly intervenes. If they do, there's resistance groups across Iraq as well that have pledged to go in and fight. So if I mean, listen, nothing ever happens crew has been proven right time and time again, but like there is the distinct possibility of this really, really escalating in what would be a disastrous way for Israel. Or the U.S. gets involved and then it's completely uncontainable.
existed for decades, is a violation of everything the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty stands for. And nobody in the U.S. Congress challenges the fact that Israel actually is a nuclear power. Anyway, go ahead.
I mean, this is it. Israel and the United States have violated so many international agreements and have shown so little cooperation in the international arena. Why are they still allowed membership and even hegemonic control over international institutions? Israel should be expelled from the United Nations, and so should the United States. I mean, if we actually thought about justice and right and wrong and looked at it in the arena of international
Something
law,
only has to happen
that would
once.
be the
Very
logical
true.
conclusion. You can't keep breaking the rules and still enjoy. I mean, what a sham for a head of state to come in and show that ridiculous diagram and to waste everyone's disrespect the world, the international groupings time. That's ridiculous. But this is the situation that we're in, and of course, we all know that the United Nations headquarters is in the United States. The United States is on the Security Council, and this is one of the things that this conflict, this genocide, has exposed: the ways in which international bodies are compromised by U.S. and imperialist domination. And you know, it's the United States that's the only world power that has dropped nuclear bombs, and it's Israel that is committing a genocide. Why are they the ones that are supposedly allowed to have nuclear weapons, and it's Iran that is the one that is being told that, you know, you're a terrorist, so you can't have any. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's completely against common sense, and it's being exposed more and more the longer this goes on, and the longer that the mass movement continues to grow. It is waking people up to this reality of theatrical maneuvering to continue to try to make the United States and its allies as the rational defenders of world order, when they themselves are the biggest threat to well-being at an international level.
Indeed. When we look at the whole picture, you can see that the U.S. is a consistent, as is Israel, a consistent violator of the UN Charter, UN resolutions. It's not even hidden. Um, again, I want to go back as we move towards the finish here, Leanne. We talked about the contradictions, the mixed signals. What does Biden say? He says he wants a ceasefire one day. Then he says the problem is Netanyahu, but the real problem is Hamas. You have the government spokespersons advising Israel not to continue the current path of endless war because they won't win, that it's ineffective, not that it's bad or ugly or illegal or immoral, but it's ineffective. And at the same time, the Biden administration keeps sending weapons, 2,000-pound bombs, 1,800-pound bombs. Now Netanyahu is invited to speak to both houses of Congress. When you look at all of this, it's just a ball of confusion. But at the bottom of all of this is that Israel has not succeeded militarily in achieving its objectives. Hamas is still a fighting force in spite of all of this destruction and death in Gaza. The Palestinian people, suffering as they are retaining this steadfast spirit. And at the same time, when you look at what's happened inside the United States, you have all of the encampments that took place on college campuses. They spread like wildfire. They were violently repressed. Thousands of students and supporters were arrested. Many of them are facing very heavy charges. Many of them are kicked out of school, kicked out of their dorms, and yet they haven't surrendered. They're fighting too. Many of the colleges are closed now, but the spirit of struggle, the desire to struggle, and the capacity to struggle, that is to build a movement in solidarity with Palestine, that hasn't diminished. In fact, on Saturday, June 8th, people are making a red line around the White House. I don't know if we have any of the graphics from that demonstration, but it's very dramatic. Thousands of people, tens of thousands, are going to come to Washington, D.C. They're going to be wearing red. They're going to be carrying an 8,000-foot long banner with the names of Palestinians who have been killed in Gaza since October. They're going to surround the White House, completely surround the White House in this action. It's going to start at 12 noon, Saturday, June 8th, at Lafayette Park in the front of the White House. People who are coming to Washington are being asked if they can to stay on after the red line part of the demonstration ends, to stay in that part of the White House grounds, the ellipse. And at that time, there's going to be an independent commission of inquiry or tribunal about war crimes, crimes against humanity, and crimes against peace. The three sort of elements in war crimes law that has existed since the passage of the Genocide Convention in 1948. This is something really historic. And the reason I want to end on this, one is I want to encourage people to come to Washington, if you can, on Saturday, June 8th. Or if you're in Los Angeles, there's a sister action in Los Angeles. But be involved, get involved, because ultimately, if people think, oh, Biden is really going to do it this time, Did
you hear about the York? Did you talk about the brief York U encampment? No, I mean we can. I mean, I was in touch with Justin Potter, who's at York, who talked about it. Like it's fucking sucks that it got taken down so quickly.
Really going to make a ceasefire. He's really upset now with Netanyahu. If the takeaway from Biden's comments, all of these mixed messages to you or to us, is that we should now become hopeful, and we should start to become spectators, waiting and watching and hoping that the government does the right thing. Biden and Netanyahu will have succeeded, because the thing that they can't really stand, the thing that is, sort of stands between them and their ability to sell this imperialism and this occupation and this genocide, is this mass movement. So I want to end with this, because I want to have you're one of the organizers. You're here in Washington, D.C. You're on the ground already. Let's just talk about what people are going to do. Buses are coming from all over the country. Car caravans are coming from all over the country. Where should people go? How can they get involved?
Well, first, I want to echo you. This is not something to miss. If there's any possible way you can come, there's multiple ways of transport being organized. Be there. We are the ones drawing the line. You can go to shutitdownforpalestine.org for the number, or you can go to the Answer Coalition website. That's answercoalition.org to find a mode of transport to get there. We are wearing red. We are bringing the red line to the White House. We are establishing that, in fact, we are the ones who determine what is right and wrong. We are not only done with the genocide, we are done with the genocide, but we're also done with the.
And Kev, I gotta say, and like I agree. I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying. I'm just living in disbelief at this stage. Our government and media is still covering for this shit. I do think it's not everything. It's not nothing either. There is this shift that's happening. We talked about the coverage that like the New York Times and CNN did on this like Israeli concentration camp torturing people. Like there's major exposés being published in both CNN and the New York Times about this, which have both been huge factors in completely promoting this for the last 8 months. So at the bare minimum, there does seem to be a slight shift going on where some of these outlets, in addition to still covering this for this, I don't want to minimize that, but are also starting to do some actual journalism and actually covering this something in a way that's slightly more resembling, being balanced or fair in any way. I don't want to like let any of these organizations off the hook though either. Yeah, we always do this. You cover up the genocide and then you congratulate yourself for reporting on the genocide. That is very true. That is the way it works. We promote the genocide. We support the genocide. We promote all the lies that are being told about the people that are victims of the genocide. And then we give ourselves awards for our brave, heroic coverage of the genocide. So I don't want to downplay that either. But I do think it's significant that they are starting to cover this kind of stuff.
The White House's maneuvering and theatrics that's creating this ball of confusion that we've been talking about on the show today. We're not going to stand for that. We have a clear vision. We know that genocide is wrong and everything should be done to stop it immediately. And that's why we're also taking the next step after the red line and we're actually going to hold court because we, again, are the ones with the moral authority. We are the ones who should be in the judges' seats. The people should be the ones determining what is right and what is wrong and which way the United States should go, not these war criminals that are holding office that can't seem to understand that the deaths and occupation of the Palestinian people and of all the people that the United States is responsible for murdering and occupying and invading throughout its entire existence, that is our red line. That is a red line for humanity, and the people of the United States are joined in that sentiment with humanity across the globe. So that's what we're going to do on Saturday. We are going to assert the fact that it is our right to be the voice of moral authority. We are going to be very clear about it, and it's not something that you want to miss. It's a very important historic moment for the movement and for the struggle against imperialism and for Palestinian liberation across the world.
Yeah, so everybody go to answercoalition.org or shutitdownforpalestine.org. There are many other organizations. This is a large coalition of organizations. Many of the Palestinian groups like the Palestinian Youth Movement, USPCN, the Palestinian Feminist Collective, Palestine Campaign for Human Rights. I'm leaving out groups because I'm not looking at a list, but you can see on the websites all the endorsers. There are 250 endorsing organizations. Come to Lafayette Park at 12 noon, if you can, in Washington, D.C. On Saturday, June 8th. Participate in helping form this human red line. Wear red if you can. And then stay in Washington if you can. Then we're going to have this People's Court of Justice where we're going to talk about war crimes and crimes against humanity, where there will be legal scholars, lawyers, and lawyers who have great knowledge and expertise in human rights law.
That sounds great. I'm really interested in looking forward. I'm really looking forward to the coverage of that. You know, if you're in the area, I encourage people to get out to that. Seems like it'll be a really great thing, and that was a really great talk. I wanted to take a look at this thread that our friend Dick Penderin sent in earlier. From Ashish Joshi. It says the ruling class of the West and global North knows that food and resource scarcities and unlivable conditions leading to mass migrations and geopolitical turmoil are inevitable and imminent. They know full well that there is no way to address climate and ecological breakdown and live with their consequences in a fair way that doesn't involve redressing global power imbalances, i.e. without ending their economic and geopolitical hegemony. And again, that's what supporting Gaza is about. That's what supporting Israel is about. It's also what all these cop cities are about. It's also exactly why they're building cop cities all across America. For this exact reason. As they have no intention to carry out real climate and ecological action, they hold climate conferences and peddle techno-consumerist greenwashing solutions to buy time and divert resources towards systems that help strengthen their imperial hegemony. It's all distraction. In a world woefully unprepared for the biosphere breakdown that's just getting started, they're investing in their military and armed forces to control lands and resources abroad and their public at home. They are fortifying their borders and developing advanced technologies and methods of surveillance, terror, and deadly violence, including AI and drones, which they are currently testing on the people of Palestine. Their media, academic, and cultural institutions are actively complicit in their imperialist agenda, helping run their propaganda to normalize colonialist and fascist atrocities and enforce a performative democracy where people protesting genocide and ecocide are brutalized and criminalized, but universities have research and financial ties with weapons manufacturers and fossil fuel and other ecocidal corporations. They will go to great lengths and cross many red lines to quash the global public's potential to strive for a better, kinder system than the extractivist capitalist empire they helm, which lies at the root of our accelerating socio-ecological polycrisis. They've abandoned global cooperation on the climate, biodiversity, and human rights and committed themselves to the vicious and insane vision of maintaining their imperialist, white supremacist domination at all costs indeed. I think that is a good way of framing all these issues. And like we've talked about, just as we've talked about, this whole last 8 months has been this mask-off moment where they've completely abandoned any semblance of like upholding or maintaining that these values that they claim to have. You know, that's been a central aspect of what has been happening over the last 8 months. Whatever semblance of these rules, the rules-based order, any of this stuff that they've still managed to hold on to is just long gone now. And we're seeing the reality. We're seeing the grim reality of it in Gaza, and we're going to be seeing it more and more and more over the next several years and decades, unless certain things happen. I'm going to stick around a little bit longer, folks, but I'm not going to stay too late today. Just passing over the 3-hour mark here. Just passing the 3-hour mark here. Again, I'm really tired because my son woke up extremely early this morning, so I've been kind of low energy all day. Unlimited certain things upon the first world. Exactly. I mean, you can fill in the blanks. Unlimited incremental progressive change in the first world. I think that's what we're talking about, right? That's what we're talking about. Unlimited centrist cooperation for small progressive victories. Zionism has never been in a deeper existential crisis than it is now, thanks to Hamas. That's true. I mean, it's been exposed. It's been exposed, and it is in an existential crisis right now as well. And if they expand this war into Lebanon the way that some people in Israel seem to want to, it very well may be the last thing that Israel does. Hope you're doing well. Thank you for the TRRS Movie Club introducing me to yet another Coen banger. Again, Raising Arizona is one of the ones that I haven't seen that much. It's not part of the Rob canon, though I don't doubt that it's absolutely fantastic. And I couldn't join. I was finished my podcast at like 10:30 yesterday, so there was no real hope of joining that. So I am going to get going relatively soon. Once again, folks, if you do enjoy tuning into this program each and every day, and you would like to support the work that I do on here, every day I do this show, which I'm very happy and I feel very fortunate to be able to do. 12 little subs to get to the goal. I'm 23 out of 35 subs. So if there's a few brave, heroic individuals that would like to support the work that I do on here, only a measly 12 subs to get to the goal. If you can, please do subscribe to TRRS. Every little bit helps. I must make the little number go up each and every day. Unfortunately for me and everyone else, it's just the simple reality of doing this program. So please do subscribe. 12 subs to go. It's in reach. It's within grasp. Please help keep this show on the air another day and drag my sleepy behind across the finish line for today. $12 little subs to go. Had Lebowski vibes, Fargo vibes, even a terrifying force of nature id monster. It sounds like a Coen banger. Was there an evil briefcase full of money? It's amazing how often like that happens in Coen Brothers movies. In almost every one of their major movies, there's an evil briefcase full of money. You can build so many stories around an evil briefcase full of money in so many different genres. Yeah, no, we were looking at that earlier, OnlyFacts. Like, their demand, because the people in the north are so threatened, they're demanding they escalate the war with Lebanon, and they don't even realize what they're asking for. Yeah, they do just remake classic noir. For sure. Genocidal mania. That's it. It's their own destruction that they're cheerleading. They're cheerleading their own destruction. That's what genocidal settler colonialist mania will do to you. It's my dirty laundry, dude. The whites. It's my dirty undies. They're genocidal, but it's not just mania. They're out of options. Yeah, that's what it seems like. Yeah, that is what it seems like. The Ringer. You didn't think I was rolling out here naked, dude? Jesus. So, folks, so far, no takers on the call to action. 12 subs to go. Just a few generous chatters could get me across the finish line for today. If you're in sub jail, and some of you are, and you know who you are, but so that's you're excused from this. But if you can, folks, please do subscribe to the show. 12 subs to go, almost there. I would love to be able to just like maybe even take a little nap. Oh, I don't know if I have time for that. Actually, I don't know if I have time. I have to leave for. That's probably not possible, but it would be nice to just be able to kind of chill for a little bit. I like the glasses, remind me of Hadrian. I'm not totally sure what that's a reference to, but thank you for complimenting my glasses. They're from the Christopher Clues Eyewear Corporation. I just resubbed. I don't know why it isn't showing. Okay, well, I'm sure it'll get something
You've just
eventually.
become an elite member of the Friendship Triangle.
Barbara Loden, thank you very much for 5 gifted subs. That's very, very kind of you. Thank you. Many streamers are saying this. Alerts are broken. We need our chatters and our subbers to get a nice little dopamine hit from those alerts. Thank you again, Barbara Loden. I really appreciate that. And now only 7 subs away, folks. We got 7 more subs to go. Are there any other brave and generous chatters that would like to subscribe to this program? Risk Inverse, thank you. Thank you, Risk Inverse, for all the support. It's very much appreciated as well. Thank you, Risk Inverse. Only 6 little subs to go. Only 6 little measly subs to go, folks. Only 6 measly little subs to go. Chat. I know it's within reach. The goal is within reach. You could help me leave today on a high note. You could help me leave today on a high note by subscribing to this program. And not only do you help support the work that I do, but you also get access to all the wonderful tiny little images. You can support this community. You can be part of this wonderful community. Only 284 till the tub stream. I mean, and that has to be sustained. That has to be a sustained 4K. Or, sorry, excuse me, 1K. That would be a significant escalation. And at 2K, I will get a tattoo. At 2K subs, I will get a tattoo.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob
on
to
camera.
talk you through all this.
That's maybe that's a little bit more ambitious, though.
Have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Garfield in a bikini. That's right. That's what I will be getting. Amazing Bird Show. Thanks for the gifted sub. I really, really appreciate that. And thank you, Crystal, as well, for the 2 gifted subs. Thank you, Crystal. Calvin pissing on the TRRS logo. No, I'm not going to be getting a TRRS themed tattoo. But I will get a tattoo. I'm planning on getting a Che Guevara tattoo. An anus beard tattoo on camera. I'm going to get a property of anus beard stamped directly on my forehead. Define sustain. I mean, at least a couple weeks. I mean, the idea is that it's got to be at that level, you know? It's great to touch that. The idea is it's got to be around that level. So if it drops down a little, if it goes up a little, that's fine. But it needs to be you know, it needs to hover around there, though. I think that's the idea. Sean, I believe it was Fat Pussy. I believe it was Fat Pussy, actually. My lifelong friend. My lifelong dear friend that I grew up with, that we all remember. Fat Pussy. We got 3 more subs to go, folks, and I actually have a funny video to look at as well. We got 3 measly subs to go. What do we say? What do we say? And fat pussy on the knuckle tattoos. That would be good. That would be good. Three subs to go, and I got a funny video to put on after to send us home happy. To send us home smiling. Three little measly subs. I know that's doable. I know it's doable. I'm not going to be able to show you the funny video. I'm not going to be able to show you the funny video, unfortunately, if we don't get across the goal. Good job, only fact. I hope you nail it.
You can count on me. You're gonna have good old Rob to talk you through.
Oh, thank you,
this.
Jay. Thank you, Jay, for gifting 3 subs. That's very, very kind of you, and I appreciate it a lot. Thank you, Jay. We made it to the goal. Wonderful. Wonderful. We made it to the goal. Can you Sharpie fat pussy onto your knuckles as a test run? Not now, because I'm about to go pick up my kid from school. Maybe some other time, though. I'll just add a fake travel expense and charge those accounts to my employer. I'm pretty sure that's legal to do. So, anyway, check this out. I was really happy to see this scene in a meme. This scene from Aliens is so meme-worthy.
Ass. Wait. Back up. Ass, titties, ass and titties. Ass, titties, titties, ass and titties. Ass, titties, ass and titties. Ass, titties, titties, ass and titties. Big booty bitches, that's where red gets. Come on, ho, let's go to the easy rest. When I see ass, titties, ass and titties. Go on, ass, titties, titties, ass and titties. Big booty bitches, that's where red gets. Come on, ho.
Oh, that's what a meme-worthy scene. It's so great. Fuck, that's very funny. That is very funny. Okay. Oh, you know, we got another new raider, Suze Kempner, who's someone I follow from Twitter. She's very funny. Ask Suze about the milkshake stuff. Apparently people have been yelling at Suze for like multiple days about the like Nigel Farage and like the whole milkshake thing. If you do the raid, go and ask whether she supports milkshake related violence. We need some answers from Suze about whether she supports milkshake related violence. I mean the deadly cement-filled dairy-based projectiles. Oh, Mummy, I've been someone has thrown some ice cream at me. Oh, I'm so scandalized. Mumsy, I've been hit with an iced cream. Oh, Mumsy. Antifa has mixed some concrete into my milkshake. It could have been. That's the point. This is the best posh accent. Thank you. As you can see, I can instantly mimic any culture and any individual. I'll even mimic one of you if you're not careful. Don't think I won't. Don't think I won't. I will mimic one of you if you don't watch out. If you don't watch it.